Good morning, friends. Did you see that little beam of light? There's another one. Come on, beams of light, whatever you are. A little, I don't even know what to call them. Welcome, welcome, welcome. OBEJournal 2019, number 20. Yesterday, whilst walking home from the downtown core to my home, I crossed a small park. There's another one. Did you see it? And felt an immediate shift of consciousness as I walked through the park. It was early evening, a little after supper time, and there was 3 or 4 either people or groups of people in the park. Not too busy, and one lady was crouched down on the concrete, and talking to her 2 children who were playing, obviously, maybe moving from one activity to another, and she was giving suggestions, and why don't you do this or do that, or put on your shoes or whatever. And then a little farther along, another lady was sitting on a large rock, on a whole line of large rocks near a little fountain, and talking concernedly on her phone to someone about something. And someone else was farther over, sitting on a bench. I think she had a stroller with a child in it. But normal evening activities. And I found my consciousness shifting quickly without plan or preamble. I had spent the day in the library and had to stop for coffee on the way home, and was just enjoying the walk. It wasn't too hot, nice evening, feeling pretty good, thinking maybe about what I might make for supper, or whatever. Not thinking about split consciousness or projection or anything like that. But it happened. So again, there's this sense, as we've discussed many times before, that another level of your consciousness is, if not running the show, then making suggestions. And your earthbound level of consciousness is reacting to those things, those hints and suggestions and whatnot. And I found myself dual consciousness as I walked on another level of the astral. And again, it would be a sort of a small park playground on the astral version of my hometown. And there are astral versions of everyone's village and town and city. And some people go straight there when they die. Others don't. There's many places to go to. Some people go to other spots altogether. But there is a fair movement from astral, sort of physical location, village or town, to astral location, village or town. And sometimes they can be remarkably similar, as some OBE books have indicated. When people start traveling around, they can't quite tell the difference between the astral version of their town and the physical version, because quite often you're traveling as a slightly more conscious ghost through the physical version of your community. And even then, because you're in your etheric or astral body, the town looks a little different, because you're projecting assumptions, expectations, subconscious stuff onto the forms and objects. And people will even notice this. I think even Robert Monroe put it on his first book. When you're floating around the bedroom in the house, your own house, as out of body in the early days, certain things will look different. door handles, windows. It'll be predominantly your home that you're used to, but there'll be certain things will be different, and you won't know why. And it takes a while to realize as a newbie that you're affecting the surroundings by your unconscious desires or preferences or wishes or whatever. So all this has been taken into account and noted by quite a number of projectors over the years now. It's pretty much a given. So this happened last night. It's now the next morning, and it occurred to me later on in the evening that that's what I would be talking about today. And because it's good to realize it expands your consciousness, even though what I'm talking about is not a very high level. It's not a heaven world. It's an astral plane world. And it's not a hell or purgatorial, but it's just people who are comfortable with or without thought, often without thought, on the astral version of their hometown. They're still there. And the interest level for me is trying to come to grips with their consciousness and their level of activity. And yesterday, as I was having this experience of the dual consciousness, what would I see on the next level up? I saw people with momentary, immediate concerns. The same way as I was seeing people, a woman talking to her children, be safe in this activity, do this, do that. Another woman talking on the phone, I would say concernedly, not really worried or anxious, but reacting to what someone was saying and being concerned and saying, well, maybe you could do this or maybe you could do that. Not sure who it was, and that doesn't really matter. But the sense of immediate concerns, things that you're focused on, issues that you're pursuing. I could see that on the next level up. Now we're talking people that are dead, living on the next level up, and in a community, and they've slotted in, and I got the feeling that their level of consciousness was not great. They just accepted what had happened, and were glad to have a place to, hang their hat. And we're not, shall we say, deeply thoughtful people, without feeling a need to, critique their level. Just accepting that everyone's on some level or other, and we all progress through the levels. And I could see more people in this, small town astral plane park, and it wasn't jam-packed, but there was more than a half dozen that I was seeing in my physical plane level park. And somewhere, and this was a fairly quick slice of perception here, didn't go on for long, but it was enough to stimulate me and remind me that this is possible, and to talk about it this morning. Some people were just relaxing, as you would in a park, as people do, and socializing and playing. Solitary thinkers, solitary readers, people on benches chatting away. Some people were definitely at a certain point rising up and sort of floating around, just for fun, not really going anywhere, just rising up and floating around, on the same level of fun as others on this plane might be throwing a beach ball back and forth, or playing with balloons or kites, you know. And some were doing it cross-legged, floating up, you know, sitting cross-legged and going up and down, and sort of smiling and laughing about it, as though they had just sort of figured out how to do it, or that you could do it. And there was definitely some people talking on cell phones, or the astral plane version of there's another one, cell phone. And are they necessary on the astral plane? They're a habit. I wouldn't say they're necessary, but they are kind of a necessary habit for those that don't realize the great functionality of telepathy. As there's resistance to telepathy here, there is resistance to telepathy there. And there's always people that are more timid or narrow-minded, or not what we'd call early adopters. And as I've mentioned, and others have mentioned many times, human psychology, shall we say, is very similar there as it is here. It is not such a radical shift as you might assume. For many people of a conventional stripe, life continues almost unrecognizably, recognizably the same, sorry, not unrecognizably. And if you were an explorer, a discoverer, an expander of consciousness, and have been here, you will find a lot of people rather dully predictable. And you will think this is heaven. It's the lower reaches of heaven. But the conventionality, even of the architecture, and it just reflects the comfort zone level of the people that want to live there. And just as you may find certain neighborhoods and towns rather boring and not worth revisiting, there'll be certain levels of the astral that you will find the same. And unless you want to go there as a sort of astral plane social worker and assist people in expanding their consciousness and learning and moving on, you won't go back. And as I say, these aren't they're not hell realms at all. They're not people deeply suffering. They're people continuing their regular lives without wanting to learn and expand, or whose level of learning and expansion is very, very slow by other standards. And again, not being judgmental, it's just accepting that certain things are the way they are, and having the patience to endure them and get on with your own stuff. I'm remembering now I could see people playing board games with like these sort of little concrete tables that you see with the chess board set out, and people could bring their own chess players. It looked like that from a distance. I wasn't paying close attention, but just another park activity. And I think I've outlined enough of what I experienced in dual consciousness there as I walked. And I mean, I have written about these things in my essays before, but I'm usually, the one essay I'm thinking of is a projection to a fairly much higher level. And sort of instantaneous, almost as I was sitting at a set of lights, I think. And this was more prosaic, shall we say. And there's plenty of those levels, believe me. those of you who wish to have more bang and zing in your projections will, find these a little dull and predictable. But it's, it's all part of the game. So join me now as we try one of those dual consciousness projections. Doesn't matter where you are or what you're doing and what time of day it is or anything like that. You can do this. Even if you see this video months later, just follow the plan or the pattern. Okay, friends, let us do a instant transfer to the next level up. Not the level of wandering ghosts, not the grey, misty transition area where there's a fair number of lost souls wandering around. Not there. The next level up, where there is community, there is structure, there is society. Just go there. Stay in your seat or your bed or wherever you're receiving these words, headphones, not headphones, whatever. Keep your consciousness there and project. As I say, it's not harder than you think, it's easier than you think. And if you find yourself unable to do it, ask yourself why. Why are you resisting this change? What is it about this change that challenges your sense of security, your sense of ability, your sense of accomplishment, your sense of worthiness? What is it about this that challenges it? Why are you roping yourself in? Habit? Fears left over from past lives where that was considered a occult or demonic activity? Witchcraft, perhaps? These things are not myths. They are directly affecting our current consciousness, depending on what bits and pieces of past lives you have not confronted yet, or either don't know they're there or are unwilling to take the cover off the little magic box and see what's inside. You can all do this. It's just a matter of how cleverly you use your mind and consciousness to resist doing it. So again, do that instant projection to that next level up, the level beyond the ignorant wandering ghost level, the level of community, structure, family, society. What community do you find yourself in? What type of community? Is it a slight variation on your hometown, home neighborhood? Wander around, have a look. What do you see? Go down a street, go in a park. I'm finding myself on the astral plane harbor of my town. There's a very active harbor here with yachts, large and small. Canoeists, paddlers, kayakers, and so there's a replication of that on the astral level, and I'm standing on astral plane level of the pier at the harbour, watching the activity, as I often do here on this level. It looks virtually the same as it would here. I see small yachts puttering by on their way out to the open waters of the lake, or what appears to be the astral version of the lake that we're on here. It's a beautiful day. I expect it always is. And people seem pretty easygoing and happy, just like they would be here. Yachts go by with 4 or 5 people on board, people making the usual adjustments to the equipment, working with the sails, as the engine seems to take them out to open water before they use the sails. Some are sitting on deck chairs, just relaxing, enjoying the passing parade. Watching the gulls. There's gulls there. All the same birds seem to be resident. Doing what birds do best. Somebody just waved at me. I waved back. So, as I'm describing what I'm describing, see what you see. You don't live in the same place I do. Although if you find yourself following my words and seeing it, then so be it. But if you're doing something completely other, observe yourself experiencing it, and observe the consciousness of those that you either pass by or interact with on some small way. And you will see into their consciousness if you so wish. You will understand the limitations they have placed upon themselves in their new dimension. That sort of, some of them have a fairly tenuous grip on mental and emotional balance. And I don't mean that they're about to go crazy. I just mean there's still a little, fluttery, still a little, what's really going on here? What am I doing here? Is this a dream? Is this an illusion? Am I going nutty? There's quite a few people who have passed on like that. Maybe not talked about much in the books, but they exist. As you do your imaginative projection, allow yourself to interact with people that may pass you by or you may meet in some situation or other. Engage them in conversation if they seem open to that. Some of them will be glad to talk to somebody because they're holding their consciousness in. They're shy, they're timid, they're maybe, obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, they're new arrivals. They're not quite sure how to act. They have maybe taken the little orientation course that a lot of people get, but not necessarily. Nobody forces you to take an orientation course. If you wish to be left alone through whatever set of reasonings you will be left alone. The astral plane helpers that infiltrate these places, either on their sort of on a daily schedule, they drop by and visit or whatever, or actually run little situations where the newbies can enter and interact and be educated in some way that fits into their comfort level. Just as people in small villages and towns often, and well, neighborhoods if you like, can be reminded that there is a bigger world out there beyond their personal concerns. People who just generally ignore what's going on in the outside world, whether it be the capital of their own country, the world of celebrity and major sports, which of course is a huge deal for some people. There's others who just ignore all that and focus totally on their personal lives and their moment-to-moment concerns. Those people are very similar in the astral plane. They don't change hardly at all. So if you can engage them in conversation, you will fairly quickly understand this and have at least some of your illusions knocked over. And I say, assumptions that, about happy people in heaven, of which there are plenty, but maybe not on this level. Now, as you experience what you're experiencing, and believe me, any level of experience is acceptable here. I'm not trying to provoke you into what I want to do. I've briefly outlined where I found myself, and I am seeming, this part of me that's projected seems to be talking to the odd strollers going by on the pier or the wharf. And as the various activities continue, people are out just enjoying a stroll, just like they would here. And I did, as I was describing something else, see myself off in the distance talking to somebody who seemed to be still getting adjusted, had passed in an automobile accident of some kind. And since there's a number of major roads and a highway very close to our town, there's a regular, passage of people from one level to the other through that mechanism. And they have to make their adjustments. And this person had, and they sort of were a bit vague and cloudy on how they had passed, but they thought they'd been in an accident. They weren't 100% sure. They were, and they didn't seem keen to explore it, They had gone through some period of unconsciousness, or what we might call sleep, after the accident, and probably been ministered to by spirit guides while they were asleep, and then left alone when they woke up. That can often happen. Guides will stand back and let the recently deceased person, upon awakening from their initial astral snooze, leave them to seek help in their mind, rather than just give it to them unrequested. So this person might have been in that position and felt prompted to talk to the projected part of me, although not saying particularly much of anything other than exchanging pleasantries, as one would do here on a relaxing summer's day. Responding to my how are you doing request question there. By saying they felt pretty good, thanks. Had better than a few days ago when they were more confused and ill at ease, and coming to a place where they have a better understanding of what's going on. And when I said yes, it's always what did I say? Always a bit of an adjustment in a new community, isn't it? And sort of prompting them a little bit. And they sort of smiled and agreed without really committing to the concept of a new community. But it is lovely here, isn't it? I'm so glad I came. And they were, it was a single person. It was a woman, and she was caught between not wishing to appear too friendly to a strange man, and yet wishing to be neighborly and connect, on a human level. And then she moved on, and other people are going by, but they're not, specifically doing much more than nodding and saying hello. Some couples, some, what shall I say, adults trailing children. Are they families? They sure look like they are. People, I can see from the wharf a beach nearby, like the one here, but a little prettier, a little sandier. The one here is kind of rocky. You wouldn't be paddling in from the rocks. And people are sitting on the sand and in swim outfits and thinking about going into the water and swimming. And there are a few swimming, although not masses, one here, one there. You get a sense of relief from some of the passers-by. I do. And I think it's that sense of relieved at still being somewhere, and I think that isn't that a funny remark that Keith Richards makes from time to time? I'm happy to be somewhere. Well, he'll be somewhere no matter what happens, even if his challenging lifestyle puts him in the next world, which I hope it doesn't, because he's a huge inspiration for people around the world who look up to him as a no apologies survivor in a world gone mad, and God bless him for taking on that role and inspiring people. As a matter of fact, they just played here just a couple of days, 2 or 3 days ago, in this neck of the woods in southern Ontario. They played an open air concert to 60 or 70,000 people, all of whom seemed pretty happy. Good old Mick up there after his heart surgery, singing his heart out as usual. What an inspiration. And there are some of their more inspiring thoughts being projected through music once again. So, as I say, please continue on your own little projection. If you find my words interfering with yours, then tune them out. It's just a little bit of babble in the background, like a little brook running by. And what's important is your experience, not mine. At least for you. I mean, I'm I'm having fun on my own here, as pretty much always. And I do understand that you can do this sort of projection that we're experiencing here fairly unconsciously. You don't have to always be knowing about it. And if you're doing what I'm suggesting that you do now and finding that people are recognizing you, then know that you've been there before. As I say, unconsciously. It is quite possible to project a sliver of your consciousness to other levels and not really know about it. Quite possible. Lots of people do it. And to not acknowledge it is yet another way, to do it and not acknowledge it consciously is yet another way to deny your experience, limit your experience, keep your sanity, keep your acceptance level in the community, keep smiling, and making sort of denial work for you in a way that you think is useful. I mean, ultimately it's not useful, but you can go through periods where you think it's useful. Because you think, well, what good am I to my family and children and community if I appear to be crazy? Well, while I understand your point, to be in the vanguard of explorers is to take risks. And it's not necessarily the risks with your mental balance and sanity. It's more the risks of people's perceptions of your mental balance and sanity. You're learning to do these things, to do these magical acts, and have them be accepted by those around you on this plane. And if they choose to reject your experience, then that's their issue, not yours. Now, you don't have to rub their faces in it, but I'm not suggesting that. But be open about it if it comes up. There's many ways it can come up. And in a sort of natural flow of life sort of way, you don't have to buttonhole people and start giving them little mini lectures. Not at all. You'll find openings in conversations. And if you don't use those openings, having had those experiences once or twice or thrice, then ask yourself why you're not using them. What is it that you're afraid of? What fear are you vibrating in tune with? I would suggest that instead you vibrate in tune with your sense of adventure, your sense of discovery. Your sense of moving onward and upward. Your sense of being a spiritual being in a material world. Passing through and picking up tips on your own consciousness, expansion. For we are eternal spirits, unlimited by anything other than self-imposed limitations, which we suck up from the process of incarnation. The actual activity of coming here and subjecting our unlimited consciousness to the limitations of our mothers and fathers and families and religions and societal institutions and education that tells us we're this and we're that, rather than tells us anything other than that we're completely free and unlimited beings. Tells us we're human. Tells us we're bound by genetics. Subject to bacteria and viruses. Pawns of political systems. Citizens of kingdoms and republics. Tax-paying, duty-bound citizens. We are all those things, but only part-time. Our full-time employment is conscious beings in an ever-expanding set of multiverses. And I realize that's a tall order. But having it be a tall order is no reason to not to respond to it. And once again, I wish you well in your projection activities. May you always be, well, there's another one floating around, see that one? May you always be challenged. May you always be amused. May you always be ready for more. And more for me will be coming soon.